24 degrees here in the nation's capital. Visibility is about 14 kilometers and it's humid, 21%. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Kayla Magwa.
My daughter saw me yesterday and said, "Dad, it's salary week." Of all things to say. Anyway, good morning and welcome. Are you working?
Try not to think about it, okay? Don't do that to yourself. You know, that expectation, we're a little older, Ayo. We cannot have that kind of pressure. Speaking of older people, our first conversation this morning has to do with an old man who has finally said yes. But before we start talking about him, let's go to where he resides. Ekiti State is our skyline this morning. Ikogosi, to be precise. I love this greenery. It's so beautiful. Ikogosi town, I'm told this place is. It looks so peaceful and so quiet. I feel like the air here would smell better than most parts of the country. And it does feel like a lovely place to spend some time. I was watching it, you know, before we came on air, looking at the greenery and how lovely and calm the place looked. I was like, oh, this is so wonderful. 21 degrees, by the way, in Ekiti State this morning. And this town has a spring called Ikogosi Springs, which is a very important landmark and one that brings people from around the world to enjoy that spring. But Ayo, the peace that came to my spirit this morning when I saw this skyline. What are your thoughts this morning?
You know, let me be honest with you, Kayla. The moment I saw this, I said, Kayla has been complaining about heat. This is where she should be living. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I agree. Let's make this happen.
Well, there's a lot of history to the town, and to, of course, the most iconic item in that town. Ikogosi is, as you can see, very lush, very green, and that also means very, very good, potentially, for agriculture. Because green, of course, means agriculture. Green means sustainability. So when you see these views, when you see these sites from time to time, you just ask yourself, what has happened to our humanity? Well, is it really out of place? Is it really bad? No. But it's the balance that's always the challenge, Kayla. It's the balance of nature and urbanization, the challenge of nature and technology. How we can use both in a way that one does not conflict with and one does not erode the place of the other. This is definitely the place some Kaylas of this world should be living in, but whether or not they can survive for long there, I guess that's another thing altogether. So, well, I guess
listen,
we'll
leave the survivor to us. When we get to that bridge, we'll cross it, you know. But let's get there first. when we get to the bridge of there's no network, we want to go to the club.
So, for everyone, enjoy.
And those are not available.
Yeah, please don't mind Kayla. She's just daydreaming. Well, it's still daytime, so she's allowed to daydream. So enjoy. For those of you who live around here, if you can, try to imagine where your location is right this moment. And if you're from this town and you're in different parts of the world right now watching this, can you locate your house? Can you locate a landmark that you know in your town here in Ikogosi or Ekiti State? Well, all of the questions there for you to answer all by yourself. So this is a beautiful sight, one to wake up to every morning, if you ask.
Oh yes, a lovely one to wake up to every single morning. That would be wonderful. I mean, you know when you're looking at something and you can tell how it sounds, you can tell how it smells. That's how I feel about this particular skyline this morning. Good morning, Ekiti, and good morning, Ikogosi. All right, let's start our first conversation. It's been going on for quite a while. Everyone had been talking. If you're listening to the man speak yesterday, I was like, wait, Obasanjo begged you and you said no? That must be a man who's standing on a very strong conviction. But don't take my word for it. We're talking about the Farotimi case this morning. We have a guest coming in, but before we have that guest explain and have the conversation about defamation, let's listen to the man himself and what he said yesterday.
All of us, as traditional rulers, we all came together to discuss with you on these topical issues that is so germane to all of us. And lo and behold, the gentleman we're talking about here is your son. Is a Yoruba man too, Daily Farotimi. But we're looking beyond this case. Babafe Babalola, nobody can tarnish your name. We have passed a clear message to all and sundry. Young, old, they've learned from you. That what is in a name, in that name, is way beyond gold and silver. Protect it. You have protected it. You have told us, we have seen, we have heard you loud and clear. Combining forces with the traditional institution in which we uphold so dearly, that is what we're using to take this from you. We have heard you loud and clear. Enough. Enough and enough. Your name is intact. We have heard you. You don't joke with it. We have heard you. Nobody can spoil your name.
I am the chairman of Transparency International, based in Germany, over corruption. I've given lectures alongside with Obasanjo and others around Africa. You can see my speech in Cotonou, everywhere. They're printed. For one to come and say, I won my cases through corruption, strikes at the bottom of all I am. That was why I rejected every appeal to take the case out of court. There is nothing I'm going to gain by his imprisonment. If I sue him, there's something I'm going to gain from any so-called damages. I'm not in quest of more wealth. No. Rather, on how to spend what I have for the benefit of others. When Obasanjo wrote and came here, I said no. When Kuka phoned and came, I said no. I have the letters here. But on this occasion, I say yes.
Well. Dr. Wahab Shitu joins us this morning. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's right here with us in the studio. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I don't know where to begin this conversation. On the one hand, Chief Ari Afebabalola is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's an elder statesman. He's 95 years old or thereabout, and he has, let me use the word, capitulated to traditional rulers. after rejecting all other pleas. What's the difference for you? What's the significance of that?
Well, I think for me it is important to focus on this gesture by the elder statesman beyond every other thing. The elder statesman, who I consider to be an individual, institutional figure, has impressed me by what he has done more than ever before. This is not, when the crisis broke out and a lot of people were taking sides for and against, I came out with a public statement where I sued for peace on both sides as the way out. So what has played out yesterday is for me a personal vindication of what I've all along been preaching. And without taking sides, without blaming anyone, I think the focus on this gesture is remarkable. It shows that our Chief Afebabalola SAN, elder statesman, has shown remarkable example that you must not forget your roots. You must always defer in appropriate cases to our traditional institutions. You know what One, who led that delegation, symbolized for the Yoruba race? That's the source of the Yoruba race. I mean, Odua. So when the Oni comes out to plead a cause, leading some other prominent, equally formidable traditional rulers, it is like invoking the spirits of the Yoruba ancestors. It is like saying, as a race to which you belong, this is our stand. We do not want this, we do not want further overheating of the polity. We do not want anything that can, divide the Yoruba race. And so we are asking you, in the interest of the race, to drop all charges. The fact that that delegation came out powerfully to make that request is significant. And the fact that Chief Afebabalola also rose to meet their demands is also significant. I would have been very disappointed if the request of such such elements who represent the formidable Yoruba race is rejected. I'm happy that he accepted the gesture. And that's the focus this morning. Are Afebabalola, I must say, is not, like I said before, he's an individual institutional figure. Perhaps the only Nigerian where you see that a whole Ekiti race, Ekiti nation, rose to declare a day in Ado Ekiti, a day to honor him yearly. That's what a day has been specifically dedicated to always honor Afebabalola. Again, look at his impact.
What's that name? What's that day called?
Afebabalola Day, where elements across Ekiti, particularly in Ado Ekiti, decide to say we are not doing any business. That day is specifically set aside in honor of the man. People will troop out to honor him. No, but I don't think any figure has enjoyed that kind of adulation while alive. Again, you want to see the contribution of Chief Afebabalola to our education. Look at Afebabalola University impacting on several Nigerians. Again, this is only Nigerian that has produced several senior advocates, including 2 Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Federation, Akeolu Jimi Chief Akinjumi was a product of Afebabalola. And the sitting Attorney General, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, also a product of, so, and then you see, and the man is still strong and healthy as we speak. So what I'm saying is that God has really blessed this man. And so, like he said, he has nothing else to prove. So now that he has come out to say, oh, I'm dropping these charges, I don't want to proceed against the young man again. In difference to our traditional institutions, in difference to the race, I think it's something salutary, and it's something that has raised the bar in terms of the leadership by example. And I think we should all salute him.
Just a quick one. Excuse me. Now, before we go into the nitty-gritty of the issues, the implications and all, you spoke about the fact that Chief Afebabalola is an elder statesman, so he's an elderly person, and he respects Yoruba institutions and all. If the table had been turned, if the coin had been flipped, do you think the other gentleman would have exhibited the same respect for the traditional institution?
Well, like I said,
I'm talking about younger Nigerians, because they do not have the understanding that an Afebabalola. Do you think younger Nigerians, excuse me, have that regard?
I prefer, and I think what that tells you is that I expect younger Nigerians who are with proper upbringing who told this example. Because part of the problem of the decay in our society is declining values. Core values lies at the heart of the Omaluabi culture of the average African. I don't want to even talk of Yoruba race. Omaluabi culture is respect for others, respect for institutions, respect for core values. So
what you're exemplifying here is about values.
Yes, when you have proper upbringing, if you are properly trained to respect institutions, to respect leadership, to respect constituted authority, you will behave the way Afebabalola has behaved.
But there are some times when, quote-unquote, elders have behaved in ways that are not respectable.
When those elders exhibit traits that are not respectable, all of us will rise up to condemn. We should not follow such elders. You understand what I'm saying? We are not saying, and that's why I say we should focus on the gesture. We are not looking at the merits or demerits of the case.
No, not yet.
We are not. And we are not saying, it's not about right or wrong. It's about, rising up to preserve our culture, rising up to preserve our tradition, rising up to respect traditional institutions, rising up to respect the demands of the race. Mind you, and that's the point I was making, when this crisis broke out, Nigerians have been factionalized. People have taken sides in this race. In some way, all the elements involved, the two sides involved, even though the stature of Afebabalola is larger. It's overwhelming. The other party too is involved is not somebody that you can call a pushover. He has his own constituencies too. So there are elements too who have taken sides on both sides. And we think, and we want to examine the implication of that on the polity. The implication of that on the unity and cohesion of our country. And the implication of that on governance. You have to take a holistic picture of it. And then say, there comes a time when you say, let us sheath the sword. In the interest of nation building, in the interest of cohesiveness and unity of our country. It is not about right or wrong. It is about ensuring the political stability of the country, the economic stability of the country, and then ensuring that we do not unnecessarily overheat the polity. We should allow governance to take the center stage. My view is that this is the time Nigerians across board should close ranks around the president.
But then there are the merits or demerits, the significance, the weight of the allegations also shouldn't be remonstrated, particularly in the interest of governance. You and I know, Dr. Shitu, that over the years, people who represent institutions, who represent authority, have all of that trust have been eroded over the years because the trust quotient has dropped significantly between the government and the governed. So anyone who represents authority, who represents influence, even including someone like, Ariafe Babalola, even though he has had to reject, government appointments quite a number of times, it is only understandable when people say, look, you are all the same anyway. So the case of defamation that's at play here, we need to look at it because people are wont to believe what is false, even what is salacious, even if it is false.
Well, like I've said before, I don't want to go into the merits or demerits of the case. But what has played out, if you look at it holistically, poses a lot of danger to our institutional framework, particularly the image of the judiciary as a whole. And when we are talking of the judiciary as an institution, all of us here who are members of this generation, I'm coming.
We'll come back to judiciary, sir. Yes. We'll come back to the judiciary. Yes. I'm talking about the governance element that you mentioned. Yes. It is natural for people to take the side of anything salacious, even if it is untrue, as far as it has to do with governance. Cases of corruption, cases of, so people, they have carted away so much money from Nigerians, even if it is not true. Without following up, people tend to go with it. But the fellow whichever person at any time raised that flag, made that claim, would have gone to press, would have made all of those comments. And most of the time, the lie has gone so far, it's difficult for the truth to catch up.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, you also have to appreciate the standpoint of Chief Ariafe Babalola. He is the major complainant. He's the one who is asserting that my reputation has been impugned. He's the one who has complained to the authorities. And he's the one who has been put on the spot by a lot of appeals and elements, For instance, a former respected head of state, and president of the country, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, came out to appeal to him, dropped the case. He shunned it, the plea. Peter Obi also went to him and had a closed door meeting. He shunned the plea. Reverend Father Kuka went to him. He shunned the plea. Now this time around, traditional rulers led by the Oni of Ife, a formidable, also went to him. You still want him to continue to...
No.
I'm saying, that's difficult. If you want those issues that you have mentioned raised, you have to wait for another day. Wait for another opportunity.
But how do we correct the institutions in such a way that the trust can be built? That's the question.
Okay.
Because trust is lacking. That people generally follow anything that is salacious, even if it's not true.
People follow anything that is salacious. Majority of them perhaps do not have legal training. Now, if you have legal training, then you won't rely on beer parlor gossips. You won't rely on, rumblings from the marketplace. The training of the lawyer emphasizes three cardinal points: the facts, the evidence, and the element of proof. That's the way we are trained. If as a lawyer I want to make any allegation against anyone, I must be sure of my facts, I must be sure of my evidence, I must be sure of the proof. You understand me? But that is for adjudication. We have taken the issue, this is to the realm of alternative dispute resolution. If, for instance, you had called me when not on the basis of what has happened yesterday, I won't comment, because I respect the judiciary institution. A matter that is called is sub judice.
Okay.
But we are focusing on this gesture of Ariafe.
I get
in
that.
spite of everything.
I get that, sir.
Yes.
You talked about him as an individual institution.
Yes.
It's understandable.
Yes.
And there aren't many left. But it's the exemplary nature of the case.
Yes. Now, what you are saying, now let me make this point. There's a distinction between allegations, no matter how salacious in your ways, and the element of proof, which arises after the trial process and at the end of the adjudication. We have not gotten to that stage yet. The man said, oh, he has made a complaint. And he said, I'm withdrawing my complaint. So what is your own bill? How can you be more royal than the king?
Well, this is Are Afebalola. There are some other people against whom such allegations may have been made over time.
Yes.
And who do not have the pedigree of Are Afebalola, and who will not have the privilege of the Oni intervening on their behalf. But some of them will go to jail on the basis of false accusation.
Yes.
And you talked about the training of the lawyer.
Yes.
So let's take it down to the sphere of the judiciary.
Yes.
You talked about the training of the lawyer.
Yes.
And, you know, the fact that before you make certain claims, you need to have certain basis
yes.
for them. The person who made this allegation is expectedly a trained lawyer.
Yes.
So it is only natural that people would take whatever he says serious, if we have to go by the words that you're speaking. That this, based on the training of the lawyer, you don't make certain claims without certain assurances.
Well, I don't want to focus on the person who made the allegation at this stage. But now that you have drawn me out, and you want me to focus on him, I see him as somebody who's courageous, who's bold, and who comes out with some measure of conviction. You know, I've listened to him a number of times. You know, it does not mean that given the same situation, I will behave the way he has behaved in this matter. And I have no competence to fault his style. He is Daily Farotimi, I'm Wahab Shittu. We are two different individuals. But he has written a book, you understand me, detailing what he felt was, you know, wrong in his own estimation. You know, but you see, the question you want to ask, as of today, is part of that book. Has the image, reputation, and eminence of Are Afebalola diminished? No, diminished. Because you know, the thought of defamation arises when you say, oh, somebody has maligned me to such an extent that people now shun me, they now avoid me, and all that. After this book came out, Are Afebalola, a day was declared by the Ekiti nation to honor Are Afebalola. After this book came out, people were still attending Afebalola's university. I don't know whether some of your children are still there. A number of my friends have their children in there. After this case, in spite of this case, you know, powerful, respectable individuals are still patronizing this man, you know, and you saw what happened with players. So where is he? Where is the stain on his reputation?
Dr.
No,
Shittu,
in my view,
yeah.
no.
Dr.
No.
Shittu,
If I see,
Dr. Shittu,
let me tell you, let me make you, I have a personal experience that I want to share with you, Afebalola. I've related with him professionally. Two recent examples. One, there was a time I had to consult him in respect of a matter, and I was in his office. We walked up till 12 a.m., read my 12 midnight. And he ordered that we should be checking to our respective hotels. By 7 o'clock, the man was already on his seat. So what kind of human being is this? So Afebalola is hardworking, fiercely intelligent. And let me tell you, one of the people that late Chief Garifa respected a lot, was Chief Afebalola. That's the first example. And recently in a case involving my chambers and his chambers, when I saw that he was involved and his chambers was involved, I wrote him a very polite letter. And on the strength of the letter I wrote to him, you know I can't match Afebalola in any courtroom duel. He agreed to settle the matter with me out of court, which brought some small income to me and enlarged my respect for him. You understand me? So what I'm saying is that I'm focusing on this gesture. And for me, the reputation of Are Afebalola is not in any way important.
I get your focus on his reputation,
yes.
And it should also go for every Nigerian
yes.
who deserves
yes.
to have and hold his reputation.
Yes.
But I'm looking at the issue and the implications going forward?
Okay, you see, I read the book. I don't want to say the facts which Daily Farotimi is relying on, but I think it's dangerous for any lawyer, not just for me, any lawyer at all, to seek to denigrate our Supreme Court. Look, confidence lies at the heart of the adjudication. No, the Supreme Court will survive me, who will be available for generations yet unborn. You don't denigrate such institutions. You understand me? In a published book or anywhere. You understand what I'm saying? Because that institution symbolizes integrity, and then, so you should shift individuals away from institutions. That's the only way the comment I want, and I want to leave it at that. For me, I will never denigrate the Supreme Court. I will never denigrate our court system, because the alternative to that is anarchy. I will not do that. Because as a lawyer, I'm supposed to exhibit learning and character. I'm supposed to show integrity and respect for our institutions. So the only way, and I think I want to invite the young man, for him I have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for the Farotimi. I was, before this incident occurred, I was looking for opportunity to reach him. Because of his advocacy, because of his fiery nature, because of his boldness, because of his courage. But I think he has done a disservice to the Supreme Court. And he should tender an unreserved apology to the Supreme Court. To the Supreme Court. Because our Supreme Court and the judiciary institution is bigger than all of us. We must sustain the integrity of that institution. You understand? If individuals misbehave in that institution, we should separate individuals from the institution. But attempt to label the Supreme Court as this or that is unethical, is uncomplimentary, and is a disservice to not only this generation, but future generation. That does not mean that we cannot criticize if we have grounds for proceeding. But we should not pull down the whole edifice because we want to kill some rats.
Okay. Kayla also has some questions for you, Dr. Shitu. Go ahead, Kayla.
I mean, I've been listening to everything that you've been saying, Dr. Shitu, and I mean, listening to Arafa Babalola yesterday, a lot of things came to my mind. I mean, it's a 95-year-old man, and at that age, what comes to your mind at that age is all about legacy. So anything that tarnishes that legacy, you would do everything to fight. And that I think came from a place of defense, you know, from this man who we're talking about this morning. But I want to be able to talk to you a little bit more about the concept of defamation in itself. When Dele Farotimi wrote that book, when we all read that part in the book, we all twisted our heads sideways. Oh, can you prove this? You know, is this something that you can actually prove against a man of this stature? I want you to speak to the concept of defamation, because that line between defamation and speaking truth to power is one that many people don't really navigate properly. As a senior advocate of Nigeria, when you see something wrong, as an individual, as a journalist, or as a lawyer, an activist in this case, if you see something that rubs you the wrong way and you feel the need to speak up on it, how do you suggest that one does that without committing defamation? Just on a general scale, not saying that that's what happened to Dele Farotimi, but just on a general scale.
Anyway, thank you. I think the first advice I would give to anyone who sees something wrong is to be sure of the foundation of his facts. You must assemble your facts. You must be sure-footed about your facts. You must have evidence to support your facts. And there's a distinction between facts and evidence. And then you must have a way of, you must ensure that there's proof for what you have said. That, you see, defamation is an injury to reputation. When you remove reputation from any individual, what you have is just an empty shell. That person is no longer a human being. That person is worse than an animal, because reputation is what sustains you as a human being. That is why defamation is an injury to reputation. And you have options if you are defamed. If you feel you are defamed, there's a distinction between defamation, for instance, and vulgar abuse. Vulgar, or you abuse somebody. Just vulgar. Vulgar abuse. It's not interpreted as defamation. Before defamation can arise, you must show that you have published something that is injurious to my reputation, is attributed to you, and then you have published it, and reasonable members of the society, on account of what you have published or what you have written or said, now sees the person against whom that publication was made in a negative light and decide to shun him. For instance, if you allege that somebody is a robber or somebody is a thief, and people now begin to avoid the person on account of what you have said, and you can show elements who can come forward to say that, oh, I read the publication, and because of the publication, I started to look at this individual in a different light. You know, but you can, that is generally in the realm of reputation. Every decent human being whose reputation has been maligned or defamed has a duty to defend that reputation. That is why you cannot blame Ariafe Babalola, who felt defamed, for taking the action that he took. Although some other people might say the approach, might fault the approach. You could sue for libel in a civil court and claim damages. You could also report it to the authorities and treat it as a criminal defamation. The option which has, nobody can fault an aggrieved person about the choices he decides to make when he feels aggrieved. And this is not saying that the gentleman who has raised these allegations should be condemned. No. That's not what I'm suggesting here. I was saying when this thing broke out that I'm looking forward to what evidence he has before he could make that kind of allegation. But it seems that we have to wait for another occasion, because Chief Babalola may have aborted this process, not because he wanted to, but because of the volume of, pleas from eminent Nigerians, which he has to respond to.
Dr. Shitu, I want to be able to talk about, there was something you said earlier about proper upbringing. And, for many young people, and I'm actually looking at our YouTube page right now, and I'm looking at the comments from people on YouTube, there's that distance. I don't know if it's poor upbringing or years of distrust, years of disappointment. I mean, it's easy for us to look at someone who doesn't really respect an elderly person, as we're seeing with a lot of people who are speaking on our YouTube page right now. So he's an old man. What if he did something wrong? Should we keep quiet because the person is elderly, if the person did something wrong? And it speaks to years of looking at the older generation and not seeing them deliver the sort of integrity that young people would learn from and aspire to. That gap between the older generation and what they stand for, and this younger generation who haven't exactly been inundated in many ways with examples that they can aspire to, individuals that they can want to be like. We've been hearing embarrassing cases for so many years. From your profession, we'll hear about corrupt judges. And from my generation, at least, we look back, there was no such thing as a corrupt judge. Everybody in that profession was held to the highest levels of integrity. But that's not the case today. So in many ways, when we look at young people, and many of them do not really care for what most people would describe as proper upbringing, it's mostly because of years of distrust, years of disappointment, watching people who were told to respect, watching them be disrespectful to our country. Can you speak to that dynamic and what young people should be thinking about right now, especially with all the disappointments that they've had to listen to, watch, and face over the years?
Well, I think young people should emulate elders who have shown positive examples and shown elders who have impacted negatively on our collective consciousness. It is not all in all situations that an elder, quote and unquote, will be right. In many cases, elders have been shown to be wrong. And in some other cases, you see younger elements showing better examples of, moral rectitude. So that's not the point I'm trying to make. The key thing is for us to go to the family unit and begin to get back to respect for core values. Not respect for elders, but respect for core values. Values of integrity, values of honesty, values of, trustworthiness. All those values that define us as a people in the days of yore. We must reenact those values and then insist upon them. I would say anybody who has seen something wrong is not entitled to raise the red flag. Yes, you can raise it. But be sure of your facts before you expose the reputation of anyone to public ridicule. Because you are virtually trying to, bring the entire character of the person down. And so you should be very sure of your facts. You should be sure of your evidence. You should be sure of the certainty of the element of proof before you go to town to raise grievous allegations against anyone. Whether people will perceive as our friends or people will perceive as our enemies. Don't malign the reputation of anyone without being sure of your grounds, without being sure of your facts, because you are trying to drive that person into, extinction. Because what he has to protect is his reputation. If you take that away from him, what you have is just an empty shell. So I think you can raise concerns about the quality of justice delivery in our country. You can raise concerns about corruption if you have the proof. You can raise a concern about delay in adjudicating our cases, because those concerns are designed to ensure improvement in justice delivery system. And all of us have a stake in this. So, but don't try to bring the institution down. Don't try to rubbish the Supreme Court. Don't try to tie all judges with that label of being corrupt. No, I won't agree. If you say judges are corrupt, I will not agree with you. Because majority of our judges are decent and upright. The few ones who are, collectively let us join hands to fish those few bad eggs out and take them out of the system so that they don't pollute the atmosphere. That is why if you ask me today, one lawyer that I celebrate, that I have a lot of respect for, is dead. Late Chief Gani Fawemi, of blessed memory. Whenever he sees something wrong, he will use the legal machinery to correct the wrong. He will not attack you without being sure of his facts. And that's the model I think all of us lawyers, because the lawyers should live in the consciousness of the people, should be in the vanguard of, So if anyone, so it is important that the lawyer does his duty within the confines of the law, without trying to bring the entire edifice down. Because if you collapse the edifice...
Let's talk about that edifice. Let's talk about these institutions, because this is a very important conversation and one that many Nigerians are probably trying to navigate right now. When we see something going on in a place, or you hear something embarrassing in some institution, sometimes you're hard-pressed as someone who has witnessed a wrong to focus on the individual who did it and not denigrate the entire institution. The importance of the trust we have in institutions is where I'm coming to with this question I'm about to ask. How can we get Nigerians to trust these institutions when so many bad eggs have passed through these institutions and have been the face of these institutions? How do you suggest the Nigerian handle that dynamic? I'm looking at, I don't want to focus solely on the legal institution, but it's one that you can speak to because you belong there. When you hear these stories, access to justice not being available, or like when we read Farotimi's book, I wanted to be able to say, oh, this is absolute rubbish, but I couldn't say that because it's possible. You know, there's that thing at the back of your mind where you're like, it's possible. I don't know, but it's possible that this actually happened. Now, when you look at an institution that has churned out so many disappointing stories, and not just your institution, how do you get the Nigerian to focus on the people who committed the crime and not, in many ways, like the word you keep using, denigrate the institution? I want to use the word call out the institution in itself. Is it possible that we actually have institutions that probably need a lot of rejigging and tweaking such that the individuals who are parts of those institutions do not continue to churn out embarrassing stories that make us denigrate these institutions that are supposed to represent us?
I would suggest two approaches. One approach would be when you see something wrong, don't keep quiet. Because the man dies in him who keeps quiet or keeps silent in the face of tyranny. See something, yes, you see, say something and do something about it. You are talking of decay in some of our institutions, yes, you may be right. But there are machinery for airing your grievances. Have you exhausted those machinery? For instance, if a lawyer is seen to be corrupt or a judge, in your view, is corrupt, there are mechanisms within the system for you to raise your voice and then ventilate your grievances. Have you applied those mechanisms? For you, a lawyer can be reported to the disciplinary committee of the NBA for wrongdoing, and they are sitting daily. A judge can be reported to the NJC, who will look at the case and then, examine the merits of the case. Even all these professional bodies, they have their own disciplinary mechanisms. Have you exhausted those? So don't go to town with allegations without exhausting the internal mechanisms for redress. So I think we need to strengthen these mechanisms for disciplinary procedures in the various professions, in order to ensure that we reduce the incidence of corruption, impunity, and malpractices to the barest minimum. Secondly, if you have your facts, of course, you belong to the media. Media, you also have to embrace investigative journalism. You have to go all out to fish out the facts. I think rather than go to town with sensational stories, we have to ensure that these stories are properly investigated before we go to town. So all these professional bodies subscribe to certain ethical standards. I think the issue is that most times we sidestep these, disciplinary procedures and then try to take. So you might have something plausible to raise, and your approach is wrong. Because your approach is wrong in raising what is sensible, then your approach is also corrupt. For instance, if I have a complaint against any counsel or any lawyer or any judge, I don't have to, I know the way to proceed. I won't go to town to malign the judge or anything in the public space, because the judge has no rights of reply because by virtue of his work. Of his work. So I think there are mechanisms that one should apply. And I think we should encourage people to speak out when they see something, and to do something when they see something. Look at the way Gani sustained most of his battles. Gani used the rule of law approach. When Gani sees something, he will go to court. When he sees a policy that is wrong, he will go to court and challenge the policy. When he sees any individual, doing what he considers to be wrong, it's not in all situations that Gani was right. But he will use the rule of law approach. So I've advised the rule of law approach in solving some of these grievances, because it's our duty to ensure that our institutions are strengthened. It's our duty to ensure that the justice delivery system in our country is effective and efficient. It's our duty to ensure that, corrupt officials do not continue to rule over us. It is our duty to expose those who plunder our collective commonwealth. But the approach must be civil, must be polite, must be in adherence to civilized and best practices standards. We should behave as decent human beings, which we are. We should not take our grievances and address them through the mechanisms of the jungle.
Absolutely. Before I hand you back to Ayo, well, you said in the course of your conversation that Farotimi should apologize. What if he doesn't? What if he digs in his heels? What if this this gesture by Afe Babalola is rejected by Farotimi? It's a possibility that he would say, no, I stand by what I said.
I'm not wading into the dispute between Afe Babalola and Farotimi. I'm not commenting on the merits or otherwise. I'm just focusing on the gesture of Afe Babalola. I'm also unapologetic about my request directly to Farotimi to apologize to the Supreme Court. I'm not apologetic about that. Because he's a lawyer, and he's one of us. I'm sure he will not set out to denigrate it to the Supreme Court. But if that is the implication that we have seen, I think he should apologize for that. I'm making a request to him publicly. He's entitled to refuse. He's to refuse because Wahab certainly is not Farotimi. And I must say that I have a lot of respect for his courage. Yes, as a person. Okay. Yes, it takes courage to be able to do what he has done.
Do you also have respect for the courage of the telcos to increase their tariff the way they have, 50%? Because definitely it's going to affect a lot of things, particularly small businesses.
Yes, I think elements both in the public and private sector must be sensitive to the sufferings of Nigerians. Governance or service delivery is about, ensuring you respect or you're sensitive to the feelings, of the majority of Nigerians. If Nigerians are suffering by virtue of any policy, I think we should review it. If increase in tariff has occasions hardship, I think it should be reduced. I think we all deserve to have access to better living standards. And that is what governance, whether in the private sector or public sector, should be all about.
But the reality of the state of the economy, of running businesses, is also not lost on us. As I think it was the minister that said, the reality of the fact that these telcos operate in very, very precarious times, and the economy is taking its toll on them as it is on everybody else. So if they are going to remain in business and offer services that will benefit Nigerians, then the needful needs to be done sometimes.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. But we need to cooperate. And I want to make this public appeal. With government at state and federal levels. And government at federal and state levels must be sensitive to the yearnings of our people. But I think first of all, as a people, we should cooperate with the government. We should encourage government to deliver. And I'm an incurable optimist. I believe our government, this administration, given enough opportunities, will take us out of the woods.
What's your take on this whole budget defense of the 2025 budget defense so far? A good number of the ministries, departments, and agencies, in fact, in some specific cases, the ministers themselves are asking for more funds. The question in my head is, guys, you guys gave your figures to the president. You asked him to go make this presentation in the National Assembly. And now in the process of defending the budget, you're asking for more money. Am I missing something? Am I getting it wrong?
Well, you're not getting it wrong. You are right to raise some of these concerns. But I think what these agencies should focus on is how to block some of the huge gap in terms of leakages within the various agencies. There are a lot of leakages. In some of these agencies, you have incidents of ghost workers, a lot of pilfering of state resources. Some of these are cost-saving measures. Some of these ministries should save cost. Agents should save cost, and then we should take proactive steps to recover our looted resources. You understand me? Nigeria is rich. Don't make the mistake. In terms of naturally, it's just that the wealth of this country is concentrated in the hands of very few. Some of them who have plundered the country's commonwealth. We need to identify those elements and recover our commonwealth so that Nigerians, majority of Nigerians, can have access to better living standards.
No. The reason I'm asking is, I mean, because you spoke about governance in the earlier, discussion that we're having. So this whole, about the whole, governance things, because if for instance, you talked about leakages, and you thankfully have worked with, corruption, anti-corruption.
I'm still working for the FCC and
ICC. Now, the question that I'm asking is, these issues of vulnerabilities, they aren't new.
Yes.
I can't count the number of Auditor General's reports that have pointed out these leakages, and yet it would seem like they have been sustained over the years. Is there some kind of collusion somewhere that is making these leakages to be sustained over the years, and the Auditor General's reports, which actually analyze the budgets or the budget execution processes, don't seem to have teeth?
Yeah, impliedly, that would appear to be so. I think what the government should do, what we should now focus on, is implementing those reports and recommendations contained in those reports. You understand me? There are a lot of reports set up, committees set up, and who have made far-reaching recommendations. I think the way to go is to call on government, both at the federal, state, and local government levels, to dust their books and see some of these recommendations with a view to ensuring implementation.
But some of them come too late in the day. I think is it 2020 or 2021 Auditor General's report has just come out. We don't know of 2022 or 2023, or even much less 2024 yet. So some of them come later in the day, too late in the day. So will they be able to achieve anything?
Well, I'm too optimistic. I think we should do a lot of searchlight within. Identify some of these, areas.
Is that something the anti-corruption agencies can do to fast-track those X-raying processes that you talk about?
Well, that's why you need to commend the work of the anti-graft agencies. They are working. And some of these suggestions will also assist them, because they listen to some of these programs. They need to, if you want to fix any country, there are two critical elements in my view. If you fix those things, those two elements, a country will be fixed. One, take care of the police and the judiciary. Law enforcement. If we have law enforcement, I'm not talking of law enforcement, I'm talking of enforcement. If the police is properly funded to be able to deliver on the responsibility of law enforcement, and the judiciary is strengthened to deliver on rule of law, this country will be fixed.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Wahab Shitu is a senior advocate of Nigeria. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Okay. So Business Morning on Sunrise Daily comes up right after this message.
Just for that bit of delay, some technical things to handle. Good morning and welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. As usual, we start from the global space, and once again, the program is coming to you from our studio at the NGX Marina, Lagos. So we'll start from the global space, telling you that oil prices hovered near a 2-week low on Tuesday after weak economic data from China and warming weather forecast elsewhere soared the demand outlook. Brent futures we see gained 12 cents, that's about 0.2%, to $77.20 a barrel, while WTI, the United States West Texas Intermediate Crude, gained 10 cents, and that's about 0.1%, to $73.27. Brent settled on Monday at its lowest since January 9, while it hit its lowest in January the 2nd. China, the world's largest importer of crude oil, reported an unexpected contraction in manufacturing activity. That happened for January, and then that adds fresh concerns over global crude demand growth. Overnight falls came on the back of weak Chinese PMI. We talked about that was released yesterday, Monday. China's crude oil demand is also expected to be hit by the President Trump's hammer, you know, the sanctions on Russia oil trade, and analysts are seeing that refineries in Shandong losing up to 1 million barrels per day of crude supply in the near term amid that ban that was imposed on Shandong Ports Group. Now we see the Naira and some exciting news there. We see that on the NAFEX platform, the Naira gained 7 Naira 72 kobo, settling at 1,541 Naira 50 kobo. That was a positive kickoff for the week for the Naira. On end firm, it was relatively calm. Enough supply, though, is being reported to meet demand from market participants. Most trades were executed within 1,530 and 1,540 on Monday. And expectation is that there won't be a major move from this range of 1,540 and 1,560 in the coming days. And the Central Bank of Nigeria has released the Nigeria Foreign Exchange Code, and they say it's to reduce risk and enhance the country's financial sector. The code is based on global best practices, according to the CBN, and it aims to improve market transparency. So we see the central bank, you know, introducing subtly one way or the other some platforms and policies and strategies to bring or to win the confidence of Nigerians more about the Naira and to block those leakages when it comes to FX. Perhaps that's why we've seen a level of stability in the value of the Naira. Now, the Nigerian Communications Commission, the NCC, as well as the telecommunications companies, they've ruled out any extension to the deadline for banks to settle their unstructured supplementary service data, you know, the USSD. Issues around the debts has been on for a while, a lot of threats and all of that. Well, now the NCC and telecoms company, they said there'll be no extension for banks to pay up their debts. Their decision leaves defaulting lenders scrambling to meet deadline by the close of trade on Monday. Initially, 9 banks were in arrears, but by Friday, the number had dropped to 7, and that's according to telcos. And these only 2 lenders have made payments by Monday's close. One bank indicated its intention to settle, and this unfolding development follows a directive issued by the telecom regulator. That's happened January 15, warning 9 banks to clear their debts or risk losing access to USSD codes. And of course, at the end of the day, it is the consumers that will suffer this. Well, we do know that, of course, the telcos now have approval for 50% hike. NLC is threatening strike. We'll see where we go from there. Let's talk about this and a whole lot more right here in the studio with Dr. Ifeoma Nwokolo. She's a manager, financial derivatives company. Dr. Nwokolo, good morning, and thank you for joining us here at our NGX studio.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Edie.
Yeah, so financial derivatives, Mr. Arani, has been one of those hyping and asking for the telcos to get an increase in tariff, and finally they have it. So, but all the dust is not settled yet. We've seen threat from NLC and all of that. But what do you see in the telcos after this? Does it bring more quality? Is it just going to be business as usual? What do you see?
Of course, we are going to see quality, because before now, you can be making a call and all of a sudden it's gone. But with this tariff increment, I think there will be an improvement in services, and also an improvement in their income, because over the time they've been calling for addressing the issue of losses when it comes in terms of their profits. And we know quite well that people that invested in MTN have not had what we call their revenue, or how do I put it? They've not been given their buffer at the end of the day, at the end of the day, because they don't have, they've been having losses, and this will have impact on the government as well, because you cannot expect a company that is declaring losses to pay taxes at the end of the day. So I'm going to see there's going to be an improvement in taxes at one hand. Another one, there's going to be an improvement in telecoms, in their services, and I think it's going to also boost services of industry, because most sectors now depend on this telecom for services, like what you and I is doing now. If there's no telecom service, we cannot do this. So it's going to boost that.
Well, hopefully we'll look for a boost in that. But a worrying thing is the reserve, Nigeria's reserve. We saw a huge drop, I think, at the close of last week. What's going on in that area?
So for the reserve, let's not forget that we suddenly saw an increase in reserve last year, and that was as a result of hot money, FPI, because of our interest rate differential. We had an interest rate differential because we hiked interest rates by over 800 basis points, and you see influx of FPI investing in Nigeria, and this boosted our reserve last year. And I was asking the question, is this sustainable? Of course, hot money is not sustainable. It comes hot, over time it withers away. So that's what we are seeing. And the reason for this is because there has been pressure in the FX market, pressure for importation. People want to, buy commodities, because we just had dirty December. People spent a lot buying commodities, of course, and we need importation to replace these commodities, because Nigeria is an import-dependent nation. So unfortunately, so we need that. And secondly, students, diaspora students in diaspora, we want to pay school fees. So there's pressure to pay school fees. Of course, our brothers and sisters that came back from the diaspora to spend Christmas and going back. So all of these brought pressure in the FX market. Yes, or the reserve. And we learn a lesson here. We have to begin to diversify our economy from a mono-sector economy, depending so much on oil. And oil, in recent time, has not been doing too well. We have seen a decline in the prices of global oil by over 2%. We have seen a decline in the price of cocoa by close to 2%. We have seen a decline in the price of natural gas by over 6%. So all of this have not been able, we don't be able to have like a boost on the reserve, because we don't have enough foreign earnings. And this has a problem that will create a ripple effect on the economy. It's going to impact you. It's going to affect you and I at the end of the day, because when there is not enough reserve to address the pressure in the foreign markets, you know what it means. There's going to be volatility of the currency, making Naira weak. And when Naira is weak, what happens?
Purchasing power reduces and all of that. Well, we do hope that the impact of the dirty December will soon be over. But thank you so much, Dr. Ifeoma Okolo, manager of Financial Derivatives Company.
Thank you.
All right, so the president, we told you yesterday how the summit in Tanzania has started. The president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, says that 145 million Africans will have access to electricity by 2030. This is the dream of AFDB working with the World Bank. But Dr. Adesina made this known at that Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit. And the AFDB president stresses the importance of collaboration between African leaders and development organizations to make this dream a reality.
First and foremost it's their countries. So it's got to be country-led actions that actually shows that they are going to deliver electricity to their people. And secondly, is that being their country, they have to increase the budget from their own fiscal budget to support infrastructure, power generation, power transmission, power distribution. They are the ones that are going to make sure that they feel the last mile connectivity there to make sure that people actually have access to electricity. We have to make sure that we have good independent utilities, procurement systems that are transparent, that are competitive. We've got to make sure that we're looking at least cost basis of generating and transmitting energy. We've got to make sure, Ajay mentioned the whole issue of regional distribution. It's not just each country, it's regional transmission lines that make sure the regional power pools are working. So those are the kind of things that they have to do. And two things we are expecting from this particular summit is that the energy compact for each of the countries will be signed. We have 13 countries that are going to be part of that, and that will allow us to do 145 million people with access to electricity by 2030.
Yeah, so that's it, the talk about energy. And yesterday we had a conversation right here with Mr. Farotimi. I mean, nobody needs to be told the need for energy if we are serious about development. This morning we also have here the Executive Chairman of Nigerian Capital Development Fund, Mr. Hareta Oralusi. He is talking about entrepreneurship and empowerment, but we know that we cannot have a successful conversation, or even as we speak, without electricity or energy. So good morning, Dr. Oralusi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So there's a summit going on at Tanzania now. We have heads of state, the FDB, World Bank, they're all there talking about lighting Africa. They aim for 300 million Africans by 2030 to have electricity. You talk about entrepreneurship and empowerment using resources of different kinds, but we do know at the core of even your conversation or your work is the energy and electricity. Does your fund look at that aspect, or do you just look at the raw materials and the personality?
No, we look at it critically. Without energy, it's very difficult for entrepreneurs to succeed in Nigeria. You need basically energy for anything, and in view of that, we created a subsidiary called Grosvenor Energy Nigeria Limited, and we've been able to partner with EGA Energy the UK. And ourselves and EGA Energy, we've been able to get funding over $500 million for Nigeria.
Does it get to
renewable energy?
Does it get to the people down there? Because some of these things seem to be so elitist that it doesn't get to, when we talk about the rural people, for instance, entrepreneurs, not the big guys, but the small guys.
Yes, that is critical for us because we are impact investing company, we are impact investing organization, and what that means is that our investors are not only looking for financial return but also the social impact. So we must be able to provide good financial return and be able also to provide very clear strategy of our social impact in community. So we look for two things in every investment we make. So if we don't invest in the grassroots or something that touch the bottom of the society, that means we are not making impact.
But when you talk about incentive for this investment, and you did talk about financial incentive, it doesn't seem like we can have that much in the rural, at the grassroots.
No, there are a lot of sustainable investment that can be done at the grassroots. There are quite a lot. I'll give you an example. When we heard about the UCH crisis, where a young student doesn't even have energy since November or something, and they can't even go to class, and the whole hospital. I was at the UCH yesterday. We met the medical directors, and we met the board, the team working on the energy, and yes, I will promise to resolve it. I will promise to build about 5 megawatts station in a sustainable model because they have revenue to pay. But their problem is what they are paying now, which they call band A, is so expensive for them. So, and if we are able to provide a sustainable energy, a renewable energy that is very cost effective, then they're happy to pay. So, and they have inflow from revenue for medical treatment. So, if they have the inflow, we can do a financial plan, we can do a repayment model, they can give us off-takers guarantee for a certain number of years, then we will prefer to put it there because it's going to impact the patient, it's going to impact the student, and it's going to impact the institution. So that is the type of renewable energy we're looking into. We're not looking into investing in energy for VI or ECOE. No, that's not what we're looking for. And we're also currently working with rural electrification Agency of Nigeria, where we identify certain community where about between 2 and 5 megawatt renewable energy stations can be built, and then attach it to the institutions that have revenues that can pay for their service.
Interesting. What about agriculture? I'm always so interested in agriculture because food security is the foundation of every other thing.
Yes, the biggest challenge with agriculture right now for us is the security, because you see, we have a lot of cluster investment model where we look at certain area, what is common, and we try to invest in that area in those cluster locations. So we used to invest in agriculture more in the northern part of the country. So the insecurity there actually has cost us so much. In view of that, we couldn't do much at the moment. So we are now planning to re-strategize.
But sorry to interrupt you. They do say that, I mean, you can make lemonade out of lime. Shouldn't the insecurity challenge be another opportunity for investment and you know?
The challenge we have basically is that, you see, there are 3 things in Nigeria that is critical for us as challenge. 1, human capacity development is a big challenge. 2, we talk about capital. 3, long-term investment is not encouraged. So there is no really equity market in terms of grassroots. It's more of debt financing in Nigeria. Equity markets, I'm talking for startups like you mentioned, people at the base. I'm not talking of the top companies, I'm not talking of multinational companies. But when you're looking at the grassroots, you must be able to have serious equity markets, venture capital, private equity companies that on the grassroots people, startup companies, early stage companies, which we don't have. So in view of that, we do not just give, and if you want to now work in the grassroots or startup companies and you want to give them money, just giving them the equity and letting them go and run it on their own is like a suicide. You are just going to, so we have to build the capacity, help them to understand how it works, what they need to do, the risk management part of it, and at the end of the day, it takes a while before you finally hand over to them to go. So our challenge is that the same thing happens to project, because we do 2 things. We work on the startup and work on sustainable projects, which is run by our subsidiary companies, and our funds works on we have different funds that works on the startups. So the challenge is the technical expertise that comes in to start the project or to help the startups. They have a lot of critical issues when it comes to going to the north in the recent time.
Because of insecurity?
Yes, so we don't just go and do the investment and leave it for the people. It's going to come back to the same. You're actually going to build debt on their neck because you're adding to their problem. They need capacity to be able to do it.
But we have a lot of NGOs and all of that say that they do a lot of these skills and empowerment. Even some banks, I've spoken to some banks, there's also like the Bank of Industry, where they do empowerment of knowledge in the process as a requirement for giving out these loans.
No, there are a lot of institutions doing that now. Yeah, of course. Nigeria is growing. Our economy is, we have a lot of overlap issues right now, but the current situation, the current strategy by the government is good. It's in the right direction, but definitely it will take its time before it can override what we have been facing, the pilot that we already have. So that is the problem. a lot of institutions are becoming more responsible. We are actually reaching out to a lot of institutions to come and partner with us. That look, even if you cannot do it, we have the mechanisms to apply this. You will gain financial returns, and at the same time you will also be able to impact the society from the same investment. So we are reaching out a lot, and we are getting a lot of corporations from different private and public sector who are very interested in that. This is a very good model. So we come private, public, both of them are really doing the right thing now. But don't forget, there were a lot of issues before now, which cannot be cleared overnight. So, but if we are able to run this successfully in the next 4 years, I'm sure Nigerians will be very happy.
And I hear you say at the background deal with the issue of insecurity.
Yes, very, very critical. Look, you can read news yesterday where it was announced that over 22 military officers were killed. That is sad to hear. So there is nobody that will be comfortable that a military officer with gun and everything was killed, and you want to just move in there to go and do something. It's not logical. So the government needs to really because it affects our business in the north. So I follow up with the military. I follow up with the chief of defense staffs all the time to see what they're doing, and it's one of the special guys that I see in this time. Really ready to do the right thing, very sincere, and very practical. So I'm sure with the effort and his team, things will improve also in terms of security. I think they are, and if it has been done this manner before, we won't be in this situation.
All right, optimism for 2025. Like many others that I've spoken with. Thank you so much, Executive Chairman of Nigerian Capital Development Fund, Mr. Hareta Oralisi. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, so there you have it. Another concern for insecurity, as a lot of people would say, Nigeria doesn't lack the funds. They have the ideas, they have the fund, but I guess it's the environment, the ease of doing business, the infrastructure. And at this time also, unfortunately, we have to add insecurity to that. And well, hopefully we will get it right. A lot of optimism building around 2025. So hopefully we would have some of those questions answered, and that would help the country to move forward. I have to head you back now to the Sunrise Daily studio, but I tell you that the NGX was greatly positive yesterday, 0.79%, and we have gone beyond the 103,000 level to 104. So a great one that we had yesterday at the close of trade. Banking, trust them, the most liquid counter was up 4.71%, almost 5%, and of course the figures drove that. Another good one yesterday was the consumer goods are also good. So you want to look for some of those places to invest for the year. Perhaps by the end of 2025 you'll be counting some money that you have, or profit that you have made. That's the much we can take. Ladi will be here at 1 p.m. In the studio, not here at the NGX. So I hand you back now to the Sunrise Daily studio. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily, live here from our studios in Abuja. And we have been, well, at least Ayo did some work setting up our next conversation. We're talking about the budget defense sessions going on at the National Assembly. And one thing that I heard Ayo say then, and it's also tying into what we're going to be talking about, is the fact that all the agencies want more money. Is this a function of the economy? Is this a natural occurrence? And then, of course, the accountability part of that conversation. What are these monies used for? And can they be accounted in real time? Well, in one of the budget defense sessions, Naseni came into focus, and my guest on the program this morning had a lot to say about it. So let's hear from him directly. Joining us live in the studio, Honorable Alex Ikweche.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you on the program. Member of the House of Representatives, Abia North and South Federal Constituency.
Abba North and South.
Abba North and South.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
This is your first time here, isn't it?
This is my first time here in Channels Television.
Welcome.
I have friends, but I've never been invited. I was called, and today I'm here.
Welcome to the program. Well, before we start to talk about this, it would not be fair for us to have you here and not talk about something that a lot of people heard about you. That video that we saw sometime last year that caused a bit of a ruckus. Just to ask you what the status is on that and how have you been handling it?
Well, of course, you know, what happened was quite unfortunate, but I take it that it's an avenue for me as a person to also build a relationship with the young man that came. Today we're friends. It was taken to court, but of course the court found no merits and it was struck out. The video that everybody saw, you know, it was a low moment. I felt the sanctity of my home was being desecrated. Of course, the part of the video where you people saw, you know, is the part that people saw. People actually do not know what happened before, you know, that reaction. Like they say, action preempts reaction. But whatever anybody must have seen is not indicative of who I am. Of course, I've been in the public space for a very long time, and there has never been any scandal about me. However, you know, the young man is my friend now. I'm very close to his bishop, his pastor, and I've made a bunch of new friends. And today, the whole Nigeria now knows me as the man that maketh things to disappear.
The whole world knows you. It was on BBC,
CNN. You know, what happened was, I think there was an MP that also had an issue with somebody in London that same day. It was on a Sunday night, I think on the 27th of October. So there was an MP in London that had a problem. So, you know, on BBC, my face was there, the MP's face was there. They said, these one legislators are now shocking people, what is going on? But anyway, you know, these things happened. And like you know, I and the young man were friends. And, you know, my colleagues, everybody's, I guess we've moved on. It's in the past now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So let's talk about the budget defense sessions generally.
Yes.
You've been very, well, we're talking about the Naseni one right now, but you know, there's a lot that has been going on. And like my colleague in Lagos, I said, everybody's asking for more money. And you've had issue with this, even from the beginning of the process. Could you talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on the budget defense process at the National Assembly?
Well, before I even answer that question, I would like to just say something. I'm here in my own capacity. I'm not here in anybody's stead. I'm not here representing the parliament. I'm not here representing the speaker, the deputy speaker, or the chairman, House Committee on Naseni. I'm here as a concerned Nigerian. I'm here as someone who believes that the president means well for his people and wants to realize his agenda for the renewed hope. And yeah, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. Okay, the truth is, on the budget defense sessions that we had, or we've been having, I have a very big problem with the way the agencies approach the issue of budgeting. And like I always tell people, we have to, I think Nigerians should begin to truly embrace the concept of idealism and pragmatism. Shun mediocrity for meritocracy. Embrace rectitude and avoid ineptitude. One of my biggest problems is that every single agency that came to the National Assembly, at least the budget sessions that I attended, they all asked for more money. And, you know, the question that is the million-dollar question that everybody gets to ask, that I keep asking is, what have you even achieved with all the monies that you have received in the past? And that's the same question that I asked the man in charge of Naseni. Naseni is an agency that was formed in 1992. And like as the name implies, it is supposed to foster innovation, supposed to partner with universities, engage in research, and identify indigenous ways for us to expand ourselves as a nation industrially. And you open up the budget proposal, and then you see all kinds of well put together budget line
requests asking for billions and billions and billions of naira. And literally, what I believe, and that's why I said I'm not here representing anyone, is that these people do not yet understand the reason why some of these agencies were formed. Now, if you say that Naseni is supposed to help to expand on our Nigerians' capabilities to produce or to manufacture, what has Naseni manufactured? What have they produced? Ordinary power bank for an agency that has taken billions, hundreds of billions of naira. Power bank. We're about 200 million people, 200 and something million people in this country. The majority of us use phones. Imagine if Naseni just produces power bank that is produced by Naseni, and then it's maybe 50% cheaper than the regular power bank that you bring into this country. Imagine the type of revenue that they would have generated for the federal government. Everybody, literally state governors, local governments, National Assembly members, senators and House members, agencies are buying street lights, solar street lights every day. Solar street light has become quite, prevalent in our society today. Has Naseni produced one that we can say, okay, this is their product and it's cheaper? We don't have to import these things. We have to source dollars. We have to transfer dollars, going through the crucibles of sourcing dollars, transferring dollars, and traveling, spending money and all that to bring in these things. Imagine if Naseni would produce in industrial scale streetlights that we would not only use here, but we will also export. These are some of the factors that will help to strengthen our economy.
You are alluding to some kind of misappropriation. I want to be able to look at your statement.
Right.
You said to get the Joint Senate and House of Representatives Committee on the National Agency for Science and Engineering and Infrastructure, Naseni, right. I had the privilege of moving the motion to investigate the agency's affairs over the past 5 years. You want to know what they've been doing?
Right.
For 5 years. I was deeply perplexed by the glaring, contrived line items presented in Naseni's budget defense, which appear to undermine the integrity of our renewed hope agenda and the current administration's belt-tightening initiatives. What were these line items?
Well, I don't have the paper here, but when you open up the budget proposal, you will see engagement of scientific personnel for infrastructural growth, 17 billion. Engagement for this and that, 10 billion, 15 billion. And it felt like, back in the days when we were young, you just go back to your home and tell your father, oh, they said we should bring photosynthesis. And then you ask for money and you'll be given monies. My question is this, and the reason why I moved that motion, that the activities of Naseni should be holistically investigated, is to actually ascertain if the monies that we have been releasing, the appropriation that we have been making for Naseni, actually commensurates with the value that they have added for the Nigerian government, by extension for the Nigerian people. I strongly believe that it has not. Then again, it's not just Naseni. I would say if a preponderance of the agencies in this country are not doing the Nigerian people that much good. You see, it bothers me because people have this very sinister narrative about the National Assembly. They will tell you, oh, National Assembly, we are the ones that are packing the home money. We are the ones we live a certain lifestyle. We shouldn't even have vehicles, official vehicles to move around. But when you see the level of prodigality that exists in government, in day-to-day activities of government, total avoidance of frugality, then you begin to ask, when are these leakages truly going to be stopped? Because if you are running a country as ours, and your personnel and your personnel cost, your overhead cost is about 85% of your total budget, and then your capital is 20% or even less, how do we make progress like that? There's a sub-agency under Naseni that is stationed in Enugu. I've forgotten what its name is. SED, they always have these abbreviations, SEDC or something like that. Their overheads, their personnel cost for a year is 5 point something billion. one small agency in Enugu that is under Naseni. How do you even begin to explain that? For a country of 200 million people, today we're not, what are we producing? What are we exporting? How is our economy, how is our currency ever going to be strengthened when our capital is this minuscule and the overhead is large, the recurrent expenditure is large? It's worrisome. It is actually worrisome.
I think my colleague in Lagos has a few questions for you. Go ahead, Ayo.
Thank you, Kayla. You know, Honorable, I looked at your countenance in that conversation, and all I could see was just some exacerbated individual. I think maybe you have felt the feeling of 200 million Nigerians who actually rely on such institutions. But I don't know if you think that the House of Representatives or the National Assembly itself has a responsibility to bear some of the blame, if I can use that term, because they have the functions of oversight, not just on their resources, but on their performances. Don't you think so?
Well, thank you very much. I think, yes, you could say that, but I think part of the reasons why it is somewhat difficult for the National Assembly is because usually the executive could present the budget, say today, and expect you to approve it, have the budget approved and passed in 3 weeks. It has been a problem. I think it's a problem. I think the National Assembly should insist that the executive should at least present the budget 3 months before the budget is passed. That is to say, if the budget is presented around, say, September, we can take time to, perspicaciously dissect or scrutinize the content of what some of the proposals that have been made, and then we can clinically examine what we have on the table to begin to avoid all those, to begin to block all those wastages. Yes, we do perform oversights as empowered, as the National Assembly has been empowered in Section 88 of the Nigerian Constitution to do, but I do not chair any committee in the National Assembly, neither do I deputize, but I'm a member of the Appropriations Committee, so we are the ones conducting, some of these sessions very extensively. But I can tell you that apart from the time that I traveled with the Chairman of Foreign Affairs to about 15 countries in Europe to visit all our Nigerian missions, some of us engage in these oversights. We see the projects that most of these agencies are doing, like physical projects, infrastructure, roads, homes, houses, secretariats, and maybe vehicles, but we don't really, go through their books. And this is what I and so many other National Assembly members are now beginning to do, because every day we keep talking about the country not having money, that everybody should tighten their belts, but I believe there are a lot of leakages. I believe that a lot of people don't yet understand the gravity of the situation. My people say when a situation gets to its extreme measures must be taken to address such situations. I believe a lot of people do not yet understand where we are in this country. In 2025, we still do not have electricity. That's a problem. In 2025, our farmers cannot get into the markets, into their farms and farm and produce crops and sell, and that is why there's food inflation. I believe people don't yet understand the number of people that are unemployed, the number of children that are out of school. It can be business as usual. And the National Assembly understands that it can be business as usual. Like I said, I'm speaking as a person. I'm not speaking for anybody or on behalf of anybody. But I can tell you this. We, in the National Assembly, understand that the country is broke. We understand that a lot of things are not the way they ought to be. And we remain optimistic because we believe that the president means well. We believe that the policies that he's coming up, it's going to take a little time before things begin to truly metastasize itself, in the physical. But I can tell you for sure that we are ready to investigate some of these agencies, check their books, and identify those leakages and be able to block those leakages so that Nigerian people can have access to the good life that the administration has promised.
So last year, there's this report, I'm not sure if you're aware of it,
the Naseni boss was addressing the press, and part of what he was saying, this was reported in November of last year, and he was saying at that forum that Naseni has produced 35 ready-for-market products, which include laptops, electric vehicles, Android tabs, CCTV, solar lights, among others, and that they're looking for bulk buyers and distributors in this new year. Were you able to verify those claims at that forum, or was it just the budget lines, or was the issue?
Well, the truth is that if Nasemi has produced these things that you've mentioned, I did see in the website that they said they had produced the electric keke na pepe tricycle. Tricycle is something that is quite unfortunate, because I remember in the 70s and in the 80s, when I was still a young man in primary school, I remember Nigeria as a nation used to laugh at India, because India, that's where you had keke na pepe was quite prevalent in India. It was a form of conveying people from one place to the other. Well, Nigeria was not interested, because we felt as a country, we were more focused back then. We didn't adopt that concept. But today, it's a big deal. If Nasemi had produced a tricycle, I'm sure it would have been all over the news. We would have seen it. We would have, by now, as the National Assembly, would have seen it physically. I remember the last administration, there was a time that it was rumored that very soon Nigerian Airways, or I think there was a name that was, it was called, that to soon start flying. A logo was so publicized. Logo was presented to Nigerians, and it was so publicized. But today, there is no such thing. So I just want us to tell ourselves, we need to begin to tell ourselves the truth. We need to truly begin to embrace the concept of nationalism and progressivism. We cannot continue to lie to ourselves and lie to the Nigerian people. Government is supposed to be honest, and government is supposed to, tell their people the way things are. As far as I'm concerned, I stand corrected, but as far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing. Even if there were, I'm sure there are a lot of big businessmen that would want to partner with the government and produce these things, like I said, in industrial scale. Because what this country actually needs to encourage, as far as I'm concerned, is productivity, manufacturing. In a country of 200 and something million people, like I said, we don't even have electricity. How do we expect to industrialize this nation without electricity? How do we expect to strengthen the middle class without electricity? How will businesses thrive without electricity? You can buy things, raw materials from the north.
If you ask me, my apologies, Honorable. And those are questions that Nigerians will be asking the National Assembly, which thankfully and graciously you belong to at this time. So, MDAs, as Kayla highlighted to you the other time, are asking for more money, and you have confirmed that is it. That's what the issue is. One of the questions that I've asked over the years, Honorable, and I'd like to ask you, should we get to a point where we ask the MDAs, before we can give you the budget for this, you allocate the budget for this year to you, justify how you used the other one, and benchmark their performance, benchmark the new budget they're asking for on the performance of the previous one? Do you think that's something that the National Assembly can or should consider?
But naturally, that is how it's supposed to be. Judging from a technocratic or entrepreneurial standpoint, if you give someone money to do something, to carry out a particular assignment, and then the person does not achieve that objective, and then the person comes back to you for more money, what do? You ask the person, how have you utilized the funds that I initially gave to you? It's a natural thing. That is how government is supposed to run. And that is why I'm saying that we need to really embrace progressivism. We need to be accountable as a nation. The funds that we are sending to these agencies are not just free funds for all. people should come out and tell us this is what we have done with these funds. This is how we've utilized these funds. It should be confirmed, their books should be checked, and if there is any form of infraction or anomaly in that check, then we should find a way to take punitive steps to correct that infraction.
I mean, the CEO and Vice Chairman of Naseni, Khalil Halilu, sometime in December, I'm reading all the things that because what he had said was that Nigerians need to start patronizing these products that they have created. I'm just going to read out a few of them for you, if you don't mind. CNG cars, tricycles, lithium batteries, solar-powered street lights, solar irrigation pump, modern laptops, and telecoms gadgets. But they're asking, they say Nigerians are not the ones, Nigerians are not buying their products.
Because the products are not in the market. If the products are in the market and the products are cheap, Nigerians are looking for ways to save money and cut costs. As we have all been told that we should tighten our belt. If the products are locally manufactured here, it should be cheaper, because then you're averting the cost of importation, cost of clearing, cost of logistics and all. So people can quietly and seamlessly walk into the market and buy a cheaper product. But the products are not there. That is the point. These things are being said, but we need to see action. Actionable steps must be taken for us to confirm that these things quite exist.
Your colleagues seem to agree with you when you called for that investigation into 5 years of Naseni. They acquiesced, they agreed with you.
Correct.
So what happens next? What investigation? Is it the National Assembly that's going to investigate it? What kind of investigation do you want?
Well, that goes to show you the disposition of National Assembly members. We've been called rubber stamp. There's nothing that we've not been called. But the truth is, it is not a bad thing for the legislature, another arm of government, to try to diplomatically work with other arms of government. We are all partners in progress. So when people say, oh, you people are rubber stamp, no, we don't want to be fighting with the executive. It doesn't just, they say when two elephants fight, the grass suffers. So basically, the kind of investigation that we intend to conduct is that which will, of course, a motion has been moved, and because that motion has been moved, definitely that investigation is going to take place. We, maybe after the budget, budget has been passed.
Yes.
Of course, there will still be corrigendums and all whatnot. Then we will now engage the chairman of the committee, Taifik, could decide to form a subcommittee that will investigate Naseni, or can decide to form the National Assembly itself. The Speaker can decide to form an ad hoc committee that will clinically begin to look into the books of Naseni.
Well, good luck with that. We'll be watching to see how the investigations pan out and what the results of those investigations will be. That's something that we'll be very interested in.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to thank you very much, Honorable Alex Ikweche, for being with us on the program, a member of the House of Representatives, Aba North and South Federal Constituency.
Thank you very much for having me.
We have a message here, Professor Imonoka Enakena. He says, on Farotimi versus Afe Babalola, I think he means to say, posterity is a fair judge. Retrospectively, posterity always has a lot of surprises in store for everyone. For good or ill, it is a woven belief of every man who has dared the gods, even though right when murdered will be vindicated by posterity. An awful privilege and an awful responsibility that we should help to create the world in such posterity will live and not be murdered. That's a lot there. Thank you so much, Prof. Aya, what have you got?
Well, Law Alpha Cross has this one. Are Babalola has proven to be a true statesman, an embodiment of respect and honor by according recognition to the highly revered Yoruba traditional institution. Let who wishes to criticize tread the path of truth and mutuality. But that's Law Alpha Cross, and that's the way we bring the program to an end today. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a beautiful and productive day.
I'm Kayla Megwa. Have a great day ahead.